Decent smallmouth. Cool. There we go.
Hey, good morning everybody. Mitch Weigel here. Hey, I want to talk about fishing on the Willamette River. In particularly, I want to talk about fishing for smallmouth bass. Now, smallmouth bass are probably the most underutilized fish species on this river system. When you think of the Willamette River, you primarily think of salmon, steelhead, probably sturgeon. But I can tell you that there are more smallmouth bass per mile probably than any other fish on this river system. There's an absolute ton of them, and they're actually relatively easy to catch. Where's my dog? Come here. Say hi. So probably the number one method that gets used for smallmouth bass is actually just crankbaits. Square bills, they work really well. Some of just your smaller crawfish pattern, shad pattern, maybe something that imitates a bluegill. They got rattles in them. This one has a rattle. Those work really well, but these can get kind of expensive. You know, depending on what brand you're fishing. I mean, these can be, you know, $7, $8, maybe even $10, $12 a piece. They're effective, but you know, if you're just getting into fishing, it's kind of hard to have, you know, hundreds of dollars worth of lures to throw out there and experiment with. Jigs are another good option for smallmouth. You know, just like a largemouth, you cast these into you know, cover, into maybe rocky structures. They work really well. That just happens to be a green pumpkin, but you know, the black and blues and, you know, other colors work too. Another one of my favorite baits to fish for smallmouth is these little yum craws. They just attach to a jig head. The unique thing about these is they have a little opening there that you can take some of this Procure gel scent and give them a little dab of scent in there. You don't have to use Procure, but that's just that's the brand that I like to use. Soft plastics tubes on a tube hook. These little TRDs from Z-Man, a Ned rig. These work incredibly well for smallmouth too. Just a standard jig head with a soft plastic, some type of a curly tail. You can use the short fat ones or these long skinny ones. So those work really well. You know, Senkos, the smaller Senkos on a Texas rig, smallmouth will absolutely go after those. Spinner baits. Spinner baits are definitely on the list too. So those work great. And surprisingly enough, something that doesn't really get used very often for bass is inline spinners. These are usually associated more with like trout, but they actually work surprisingly well at times. The method that I really want to put a lot of emphasis on, and this is what I've been using a lot lately, and part of the reason is that it's very inexpensive to run, and it's very effective, and that's actually the Dropshot method. I like using night crawlers for my bait, but with the Dropshot method you could use soft plastics. You could use ribbon tail worms, or, you know, anything that you would fish, you know, like on a Texas rig or a jig head. Tubes don't really work for drop shotting very well. I've tried that. To do this setup, you're going to need to know two knots. You're going to need to know a standard fisherman knot and a polymer knot. And I'm not going to go over the knots in great detail because there are some tutorials on YouTube that are excellent tutorials. You know, they use large line and hooks, and they really show you how to tie those knots. But we're just going to kind of go over the basics. So to do drop shotting, I recommend a spinning rod setup. Just a lighter spinning rod. You don't have to have a super heavy rod. A medium action will work just fine. This is a 7-foot Shakespeare. It's just a 2-piece spinning rod. It's nothing special. It's just one of their you know, ugly stick brands, but it works well. I've paired it with a Okuma Kaimar C40 reel, and I've got 15-pound test fluorocarbon coated fishing line on here. You can use monofilament, you can use braid. It doesn't really matter, but that's just what I have on this setup. So coming from your main line on your reel and rod, you always want to have a step down in the line. And the reason for that being is that you want to actually, in a sense, you want to engineer breaking points into your line and your leader, so that if you do actually get snagged up and break line off, you're not breaking off all of your main line, because that can get kind of annoying, because what will happen is then you'll have this big wad of fishing line out in the areas that you want to fish, and it's just there for other people to get snagged up. So typically you want to try to engineer your fishing setup so that you have a breaking point, so that if you do break off, you're not breaking off more than like 3, 4, maybe 5 feet of fishing line. That way you know, you're not creating those big rat nests of line for people to snag up on. So the first knot we're going to do is a polymer knot, and so you're just going to take your main line. We're going to fold that back and create 2 pieces of line, one folded back against the other. And a little trick, you can kind of take this and drag it through your teeth to try to help refine that point just a little bit. We're going to feed it through the eye of the barrel swivel, and then we're just going to make an overhand loop or knot. So see how that just kind of relaxes and falls into a little circle down there. So then our double tag in, we're going to loop it through, create a square knot. And you can kind of start to pull this up if you'd like. But then take your swivel and actually pass it back through your loop on this tag end here. Pull that back. Give her some spit there so that the line doesn't get all tangled up. Oops, grab that tag in and just pull that knot down like so. You can pull from both ends, tighten it up. That's a super simple knot, guys, and polymer knots are very strong. They're quick to tie. And grab your leader line. Now you can use fluorocarbon or mono, it doesn't really matter. I particularly like to use fluorocarbon just because I feel like it's a lot tougher, and it doesn't stretch like monofilament does, but it's kind of spendy. It's like 15 bucks for that 100-yard reel. So you know, if you want to fish with mono, that's perfectly fine. It works just fine too. But we're going to pull off about 5 feet. So I just usually kind of grab it and stretch my arms out. That's about 5 feet, maybe a little more. Oh, next, take about, I don't know, about 2 feet from the end of either side and just double it back again. We're going to do another polymer knot. But this time we're going to attach our hook. And for this drop shot method, because I'm using night crawlers, I want to use a bait holder style hook. And we're just going to go ahead and from the point side of the eye, this is important, we're going to go ahead and feed that line through for our polymer knot. So you should look, you know, like that. Make our polymer knot. Oops, I got a little big on the loop there. Just pull that up. See how I have my line twisting? That's because I let that loop get a little too big and I didn't lubricate it well enough. But anyway, pull that line up. This will still work. Get that going here. Okay, so you want to make sure that knot is kind of up on the top of the eye. So next, take the bottom piece of line. So you're going to have your hook kind of in the middle here, but take the bottom, so whatever side is facing down, you want that hook point facing up. But take your tag end on the bottom side and run it back through the eye of the hook from the top down. And then pull that up. And what that will do is that will suspend that hook with the point up. It makes that hook stand straight out, so that if a fish is going to come up and bite that, your hook point is up. If your hook point is down, just flip it over. Okay? You don't want fish biting at a hook that's facing that direction, because you're going to lose fish. You're going to feel them bite. You're going to go set the hook, and really you're just going to end up jerking it out of your mouth. You want the hook facing that direction so that when you pull, it hooks them in the top of the mouth. We're going to use a fisherman's knot. We're going to attach the top end of that leader so that the hook would be facing up. We're just going to go ahead and use a simple fisherman's knot. Obviously the main reason we're not using a polymer knot here is because we can't pass that swivel back through with the line attached to the other side. But a second reason is actually that the fisherman's knot is just a little bit weaker than the polymer. And so what we've actually done here is we've created a breaking point. We have 15-pound main line and 10-pound leader and a little bit weaker knot. So hopefully if this gets snagged up, this is going to break off right there. And you're not leaving all that excess line in the water. And so now we need, down here on the end, we need some type of a weight. Now I particularly like to use these Dropshot weights just because they have these little pinch clips on them. You just feed your line through, double it back, and put a little tension on it, and now that line, or that, excuse me, that weight is just clipped on there. Generally I keep about, from the weight to the hook, I keep about 15 to 18 inches. It doesn't have to be an exact science. If you can't find these Dropshot weights, or possibly if you can't afford them because these are a little bit on the spendy side, you get about 12 of them. They're usually about $5 or $6. But if you can't do that, one of the things that you can do is attach split shot. But there you go, you have the perfect Dropshot. Now, like I say, I like fishing night crawlers just because bass, they absolutely love them. I don't know why more people don't fish them for bass, but that's what I like to fish. So you would just pretend that that's a night crawler. This is a Zoom curly tail worm, but you can just feed it on the hook and then just leave a little tail. You can break your night crawlers in half if you want to. You know, if this was a night crawler, I'd probably pinch that tail off and leave, about so much hanging past the hook. If you leave a very long presentation with your bait, you're going to get short bit by all the small fish. So you're going to feel them down here. They're going to be grabbing that tail and jerking on it, and more than likely, like this worm here, because I've used it so many times, it's going to get broke off. But you can fish the soft plastics the same way. Generally, I would just use an extra wide gap hook. Do the exact same setup with, like we did with the bait holder hook. But this is extremely effective method, and it's pretty cheap to fish. You don't lose a lot of gear this way. Generally what happens is your weight's going to get hung up, and you can break that free. And so you just basically, if this was stuck in some rocks, you just pull that loose. You still got your hook and your bait there, and you would just grab another piece of weight and attach it. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Some friends of mine and I, we were out on the Willamette, just above the falls. We were doing some bass fishing. We actually caught some channel cats using this method with the night crawlers, but I just didn't get a whole lot of video. So hopefully this how-to kind of helps you guys get set up with your gear. I hope you enjoy the fishing video, and I guess we'll see you guys next time. Take care.